The sound is rhythmic, violent, a ragged, desperate drawing of air that claws at the back of a throat. Close your eyes. Listen to that struggle. This is not the sound of a marathon runner finishing a race. This is the sound of a human being simply trying to stand still at 5,000 meters. In this altitude, the air is a ghost. It offers you nothing. With every lungful, you are receiving 40% less oxygen than the world below has taught your body to expect. For a lowlander, this environment is a slow-motion execution. Within hours, your blood begins to thicken, turning into a heavy, dark sludge as your bone marrow overproduces red cells in a frantic, misguided attempt to keep your heart beating. Eventually, the pressure in your lungs forces fluid into your air sacs. You drown, not in water, but in the very effort of trying to stay alive. But look past the person struggling. Look at the woman walking beside them. She is carrying 60 pounds of salt on her back. She is climbing a vertical scree slope that would defy an Olympic athlete. Her breath is steady, her heart rate is calm. She is not fighting the mountain, she is an extension of it. We have been told for centuries that the Himalayas are a destination for explorers to conquer. We have been shown the flags at the summits and the colorful tents of the base camps. But those are stories of visitors. What we are looking for is the story of those who never left, the civilizations that turned a biological death zone into a home. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you are watching from. I want to know exactly how far these hidden stories are reaching. This is the Trans-Himalaya, on a world stripped of the luxuries of the lower earth. Most people see the Himalayas as a jagged line of peaks on a map. But for the civilizations rooted in the rain shadow of these mountains, in the forbidden valleys of Mustang, Dolpo, and Upper Tibet, the geography is not a landmark. It is a physiological cage. For 3,000 years, the people of these high plateaus have lived in a state of constant biological rebellion against the planet. While the rest of humanity evolved in the thick, humid air of the coasts and the fertile plains, these societies were forged in a high-altitude void. In this place, the environment does not just influence culture, it dictates the very speed of human existence. Here, a religious ritual is performed with slow, deliberate movements because a sudden burst of energy can be lethal. The walls of a home are not thick for privacy. They are thick because the pressure of the wind at 4,000 meters can strip the heat from a human body in seconds. You think you know the Himalayas because you have seen the photos of Everest. But the world you are about to see is one that most people are physically incapable of visiting. It is a world where the earth is a scorched palette of ochre and violet, where water is a memory of distant glaciers, and where every breath is a victory. We are not looking at a travel destination. We are looking at the limit of what a human being can endure before nature forces a total reimagining of what it means to be alive. What allowed these people to stay when every law of biology said they should perish? Recent genomic studies have uncovered a truth that sounds like science fiction. The inhabitants of these unseen regions, the Sherpa and the Tibetan populations, possess a specific DNA mutation found nowhere else on Earth. It is the EPAS1 gene, often called the super athlete gene. While your body would fail, their bodies have adapted to use oxygen with a radical, haunting efficiency. They do not just live in the mountains. Their very blood has been redesigned by the peaks. This is the first layer of the secret we are about to unpack. Over the next 2 hours, we will move through the deepest canyon in the world to find the sky caves. 10,000 man-made grottos carved into vertical cliffs by a people who lived in the marrow of the rock. We will follow the ghost of the salt route, a 1,000-year-old trade artery that once moved white gold across glaciers that swallow entire caravans. We will enter the forbidden zones along militarized borders where ancient cultures have been bifurcated by sniper nests and radar installations. And finally, we will confront the most urgent truth of all. The sound of the mountains is changing. As the ice that sustained these civilizations for millennia begins to evaporate, we are witnessing the final chapter of a human experiment that may never be repeated. The water towers are failing. The ancient logic of the peaks is dissolving. This is the story of a world that shouldn't exist, and the people who are fighting to ensure it doesn't disappear before you see it. This is the beginning of the journey into the unseen Himalayas. To understand the Trans-Himalaya, one must first accept the paradox of a desert sitting atop the roof of the world. While the southern slopes of this range are defined by the violent life of the monsoon, the interior is a landscape of exclusion. As the clouds rise from the plains of India, they are forced upward, stripped of every drop of moisture by the jagged teeth of the peaks. By the time the air crests the great Himalayan range, it is empty. This creates the rain shadow, a frigid, high-altitude void where the earth is rendered in a scorched palette of ochre, violet, and bone. In regions like Mustang and Ladakh, there is no timber to build with and no soil deep enough to sustain a forest. This environment is the primary architect of the human story here. In the absence of wood, the civilizations of the interior turned to the earth itself. They developed a mastery of rammed earth and sun-dried mud, building structures that do not sit upon the land, but seem to grow directly out of the scree slopes. These are not merely shelters. They are thermal batteries designed to trap the rare, brutal heat of the high-altitude sun. Every window is small, every doorway is low, and every wall is thick enough to withstand a climate that views human presence as a temporary intrusion. To live here is to exist in a space where the geography has removed every unnecessary element, leaving only the hard, mineral reality of the rock. The people of the rain shadow did not just adapt to this aridity. They used it to build a culture of permanence in a place that offers no hospitality. But the true weight of this cage is not found in the stone of the houses, but in the very air that moves between them. And the scarcity of oxygen is a silent ruler that governs every movement of the body and every rhythm of the soul. In the lowlands, a heartbeat is an afterthought. Here, at 4,000 meters, it is a constant, thudding reminder of the cost of survival. This physiological reality has created a culture of deliberate, calculated slowness. You see it in the way a farmer moves through a field of barley, or the way a monk circumambulates a shrine. There is no frantic energy, no wasted motion. To move too quickly is to invite a crisis of the blood. To rush is to disrespect the limitations of the lungs. This enforced pace has seeped into the very fabric of spiritual life. The long, resonant drones of the ceremonial horns and the slow, deep chanting of the monasteries are not merely aesthetic choices. They are the acoustic expressions of a body operating at the limit of its capacity. Even the rituals of death are dictated by this biological scarcity. In a landscape where the ground is too hard to dig and wood is too precious to burn, the final act of a human life must find another way to return to the cycle of the mountain. This led to the practice of sky burials, where the body is offered to the vultures on the high ridges. It is a pragmatic, humble acknowledgement that in the Himalayas, nothing is wasted. The human form is returned to the sky, completing a journey that began with the first labored breath of infancy. Life is lived in a state of perpetual preservation, a slow-burning fire that must be tended with absolute discipline to keep from flickering out. When this discipline extends beyond the body and into the very structures the people inhabit, as they attempt to hold back a force that never tires. The wind of the high plateau is not a breeze. It is a kinetic force capable of eroding both stone and spirit. In the canyon of the Kali Gandaki, the air is funneled through the deepest gorge on the planet, creating gales that accelerate to lethal speeds by mid-afternoon. This is why the Himalayan village is never an open space. It is a dense, defensive cluster of architecture designed as a baffle against the atmosphere. Narrow, winding alleys are built to break the momentum of the wind, creating microclimates of stillness where people can congregate. The flat roofs are weighted down with stones, not just to dry grain, but to prevent the very home from being dismantled by the sky. This is the sovereignty of the gale, a power that demands total architectural submission. Every home in the high Himalayas is a fortress of thermal management. The ground floor is often reserved for livestock, using the animal heat of yaks and goats to warm the living quarters above. It is a closed-loop system of survival where the boundaries between the human and the animal are blurred by the necessity of shared warmth. In the winter months, when the passes are choked with snow and the outside world ceases to exist, the family retreats into the center of the house, huddled around a small hearth fueled by dried dung. There is a profound silence in these months, a period of cultural hibernation where the story of the tribe is passed down through oral traditions in the dark. The geography has forced these people into a state of intense communal reliance. They are bound to one another by the shared weight of the cold, creating a social fabric as dense as the mud walls that protect them. The price of living at the edge of the habitable world is a total lack of margin. In the unseen Himalayas, there is no such thing as a minor mistake. A late frost, a dried spring, or a sudden change in atmospheric pressure can mean the end of a lineage. This precarity has produced a people of extraordinary resilience and cognitive maps that are as detailed as any modern survey. They know the temperament of every glacier and the history of every seasonal stream. Their survival is a testament to an unbroken chain of ecological knowledge that has been refined over 100 generations. And they have mastered the art of the vertical economy, moving their wealth, the livestock between different altitudinal zones to exploit the fleeting growth of the high summer grasses. It is a life of constant motion, yet it is rooted in a deep spiritual stillness. This state of clinical endurance is not just a physical struggle, it is a source of immense cultural pride. To be a person of the high peaks is to belong to an elite tier of humanity that has looked at the most aggressive landscape on Earth and chosen to stay. They have built a civilization that values patience over speed and community over the individual, because the mountain allows no other way to exist. But as we look closer at these vertical settlements, we find that the most extraordinary evidence of this survival is not found on the surface of the land, but hidden deep within the very bone of the mountain itself. Ancient secrets are waiting in the darkness of the cliffs, left behind by those who first dared to carve a life out of the vertical void. High above the floor of the Kali Gandaki Gorge, the rock face is riddled with openings that look like 1,000 sightless eyes staring out over the deepest canyon on the planet. These are the sky caves of Nepal, a staggering achievement of human desperation and ingenuity. Thousands of years ago, a forgotten civilization began a project that defies the logic of the earth, carving over 10,000 chambers directly into the vertical limestone cliffs. Some of these grottos sit hundreds of feet above the valley floor, reachable only by those who possess the skill of a mountain goat and the resolve of a person with nowhere else to go. These are not mere holes in the rock. They are a vertical necropolis, a city of the dead and the living, suspended in the thin air between the river and the peaks. When archaeologists first entered these chambers, they found more than just empty spaces. They found the skeletal remains of families, their bones scarred by the tools of their own people, suggesting a complex and deeply ritualized relationship with the transition from life to the mountain. The question that haunts the silence of the gorge is why any society would choose to exist in a state of constant vertical suspension. To enter these caves was to abandon the horizontal world entirely. It was a choice made by a people who understood that the floor of the valley offered no safety. Down below, the winds were a weapon, and the movements of rival tribes were a constant threat. By retreating into the marrow of the rock, these ancient architects created a defensive posture that was absolute. They carved sophisticated multi-level apartments connected by internal tunnels and ladders that could be withdrawn in an instant, leaving any intruder helpless against the sheer face of the cliff. This was an architecture of survival, born from a time when the environment was a relentless adversary. The labor involved is almost impossible to quantify, using only hand tools to bore into the brittle stone while hanging from ropes over a terminal drop. Every inch of living space was earned through a physical struggle that modern engineering would struggle to replicate in such conditions. Inside these grottos, the air is dry and perfectly still, preserving the human story in a way the humid lowlands never could. The walls still bear the soot from hearths that went cold 3 millennia ago. We find remnants of woven baskets, ceramic shards, and even fragments of silk, hinting at a culture that was far more connected to the ancient trade networks than their isolation would suggest. These caves were not merely temporary shelters for nomadic herders. They were permanent settlements where generations were born, lived, and died. In the deepest recesses, there are granaries that still hold the husks of barley, proving that these people had mastered the art of vertical storage to protect their lifeblood from the elements. This was a civilization that had turned the very geology of the Himalayas into a shield. They lived in the silence of the heights, watching the world pass by far below them, safe within the cold embrace of the mountain. It was a life defined by a singular, unwavering focus on the preservation of the lineage against a landscape that sought to erase it. As the centuries passed, the purpose of the caves shifted, reflecting the evolving spiritual landscape of the high plateau. What began as a fortress of survival eventually became a sanctuary for the soul. Later generations of monks and hermits sought out these inaccessible chambers for meditation, believing that the physical distance from the earth brought them closer to a higher state of consciousness. They painted the walls with intricate murals of deities and protectors, their colors still vivid after hundreds of years in the darkness. These silent sentinels of the Kali Gandaki stand as a testament to the fact that for the Himalayan people, the mountain has always been both a prison and a cathedral. What the caves represent a moment in human history when the line between the body and the rock grew thin, and the struggle for existence was transformed into an act of vertical devotion. But as remarkable as these cliffside cities are, they were only the anchors for a much larger, more fluid world. To truly understand the power that once moved through these valleys, we must follow the paths that led away from the cliffs and toward the high glaciers, where a different kind of wealth was being traded for the very right to exist. For a millennium, the pulse of the high Himalayas was driven by a single crystalline necessity: salt. While the modern world views this mineral as a common table commodity, for the civilizations of the high plateau, it was white gold. It was the only currency that mattered. In the saline flats of the Tibetan plateau, salt was harvested by hand from the edges of ancient evaporating lakes. This was a brutal labor, performed in a landscape where the sun burns the skin and the wind freezes the bone. But the salt itself was useless unless it could be moved. It had to be carried south, through the jagged teeth of the mountains, to be traded for the grain and timber that the high altitudes could not produce. We have been shown a version of these mountains defined by tourism. What we are about to discover is a world built on the back of a mineral, white gold, and the blood of those who carried it. This was not a business of convenience. It was a calibrated survival mechanism that tethered the nomadic north to the agricultural south. Without the salt, the people of the high peaks would have starved. Without the trade, where the southern valleys would have lacked the essential mineral for their livestock and their health. The logistics of this movement required a specialized class of human beings, the merchant warriors. These were men and women whose lives were measured in the distance between mountain passes. To move the salt, they relied on caravans of thousands of yaks and goats, animals capable of navigating the narrowest ledges in the thinnest air. The most formidable barrier on this route was the Nangpa La, a glacier-covered pass standing at nearly 6,000 meters. To cross it was to enter a world of pure ice and shifting crevasses. The caravan leaders did not use maps. They used a deep, ancestral memory of the ice. They watched the color of the glacier and the behavior of the wind. A sudden change in pressure was not a weather report. It was a signal to halt or die. There was a specific ritual to the crossing, a silent understanding between the herder and the beast. If a yak slipped into a crevasse, it was not just the loss of an animal, it was the loss of a family's entire annual wealth. The glacier was a living judge, deciding who was worthy of passage and who would be claimed by the frost. Every step on the salt route was a calculated risk, and the human cost was often paid in blood and breath. The merchant warriors lived in a state of perpetual motion, their skin tanned to the texture of leather by the high-altitude radiation. They did not carry tents. They slept in the lee of their animals, using the warmth of the herd to survive nights where the mercury dropped far below zero. This was a life of extreme physical solitude, yet it was governed by a complex code of honor. Trade was conducted through salt partnerships, hereditary bonds between families in the north and south that lasted for generations. These partnerships were sacred. A trader from the high plateau would arrive at a village in the south, and his partner would be waiting with bags of grain. No money changed hands. The value was determined by a traditional ratio that had remained unchanged for centuries. It was a system based entirely on trust, a human bridge built across a geography that sought to separate people. The weight of the salt on the back of a goat was the physical manifestation of a promise kept between two worlds that could not survive without each other. As the caravans descended into the lower valleys, the exchange of salt for grain was more than a commercial transaction. It was a cultural fusion. The salt carried the stories, the news, and the spiritual energy of the high plateau into the lush forests of the south. In return, the traders carried back the myths and the materials of the lowlands. This constant circulation of people and goods created a unique mountain identity that superseded national borders. The wealth generated by this trade allowed for the construction of fortified mountain strongholds and the patronage of great monasteries. These structures were the visible evidence of the salt route's power, serving as both warehouses for the mineral and sanctuaries for the culture. But this trade was not just about the movement of goods, it was about the architecture of power. The control of the passes meant the control of the lifeblood of the Himalayas. To understand how these merchants protected their wealth and their way of life, we must look at the fortresses they built. Cities designed to withstand an environment that was as aggressive as any invading army. In the heart of the former kingdom of Mustang, there is a city that sits like a weathered crown upon the high plateau. Lo Mantang is a fortress of survival, a dense cluster of whitewashed structures surrounded by a massive perimeter wall that has stood for over 600 years. While most walled cities in history were designed to repel the swords and arrows of invading empires, the walls of Lo Mantang were built to confront a much more persistent enemy, the wind. At nearly 4,000 meters, the atmosphere is not a neutral space. It is a kinetic weight. The gales that roar through the Kali Gandaki Gorge arrive with such velocity that they can strip the moisture from a human body in minutes and erode the surface of the rock itself. To build here was to engage in a war of position against the sky. The city was constructed using the technique of rammed earth, moist soil mixed with gravel and clay, packed into wooden forms until it achieved the density of stone. These walls do not just provide shelter, they provide thermal mass, absorbing the brutal radiation of the high-altitude sun during the day and radiating it back into the living spaces during the sub-zero nights. It is an architecture of total necessity, where every line and every corner is a calculated response to the aggression of the environment. The layout of the city is a masterpiece of environmental engineering disguised as a labyrinth. There are no wide boulevards or open plazas in Lomanthang. Instead, the streets are narrow, winding baffles designed to break the momentum of the wind. When the afternoon gales strike the exterior walls, the force is dissipated by the irregular geometry of the alleys. This creates a microclimate of relative stillness within the city, allowing for a communal life that would be impossible on the open plateau. To walk these streets is to feel the weight of history in the very texture of the walls. The houses are built so close together that they seem to lean on one another for support, sharing their warmth and their strength. There is a deep structural wisdom in this density. By minimizing the surface area exposed to the elements, the people of Lomanthang created a collective sanctuary. The architecture reflects a culture that understands that individual survival is a myth at this altitude. Only by huddling together behind the earth can a civilization hope to endure. The wind may howl against the outer battlements, but inside the baffle of the alleys, the air is quiet enough to hear the soft murmur of prayer or the clatter of a loom. Behind the heavy wooden doors and the thick mud walls, the domestic life of Lomanthang unfolds in a series of vertical layers. The traditional home is a universe unto itself. The ground floor is a dark, cool space for the livestock, where the breath of the animals provides a foundational layer of heat for the floors above. The middle level is the heart of the home, the kitchen and the sleeping quarters, where the family gathers around a hearth that is never allowed to go cold. The smoke from the fires, fueled by dried yak dung, rises to the rafters, seasoning the wood and preserving it against the rot. On the highest level, the roof is flat and open to the sky, serving as a workspace for drying grain and a vantage point to watch the weather rolling in from the peaks. This is where the human story of the city is written in the daily rhythms of labor and rest. Life here is lived in a state of quiet intensity, a focused effort to maintain the spark of life in a place that offers no mercy. The interior of a home in Lomanthang is a space of profound dignity, where the harshness of the plateau is kept at bay by the warmth of human connection and the strength of the earth. Despite the modernization of the world below, the identity of this walled city remains tied to the ancient logic of the salt traders who founded it. For centuries, Lomanthang was a vital hub on the trade routes, a place where the merchant warriors could find safety and the priest kings could exert their authority. The city was not just a collection of houses. It was a sovereign entity, a cultural anchor that held the diverse tribes of the region together. Even today, the presence of the monasteries within the walls serves as a reminder that this was a civilization built on a spiritual foundation as solid as the rammed earth. The monks are the keepers of the city's memory, guarding libraries of ancient texts that contain the medical, ecological, and spiritual knowledge of the peaks. Lomanthang is a living archive, a place where the past is not a memory, but a physical reality that continues to shape the present. But as we move from the protective shell of the city into the spiritual heart of the culture, we find that the struggle for survival was mirrored by a psychological struggle. To exist in a landscape this violent, the people required more than just walls. They required a faith that was as fierce as the mountains themselves. In the high monasteries of the Trans-Himalaya, the spiritual landscape does not conform to the tranquil imagery found in the valleys below. When you step into the assembly halls of Mustang or Ladakh, you are not met by the serene, smiling faces of pacifist icons. Instead, when the walls are crowded with figures of terrifying intensity, deities with many arms, crowned with skulls, and wreathed in tongues of flame. These are the wrathful protectors. To the outsider, they may appear like nightmares, but to the people of the peaks, they are a logical necessity. In a landscape where the environment is a constant predator, a peaceful God is a useless abstraction. The theology of this high-altitude world had to be as fierce as the blizzards and as unyielding as the rock. These deities represent the transformation of nature's violence into a spiritual force that can shield the community. They are the psychological response to a geography that offers no room for weakness. When the wind howls with a force that can flatten a village, the people do not look for a gentle shepherd. They look for a guardian who can outlast the storm. This religious iconography is a direct mirror of the jagged geography outside the monastery walls. The mountains of the Himalayan interior are not soft or welcoming. They are places of sharp edges and sudden, lethal shifts in temperament. The local belief system recognizes that the land is inhabited by Yula, the country gods, and Lu, the subterranean spirits, who must be constantly appeased. This is why every high pass is marked by a cairn of stones and a cluster of prayer flags. These markers are not merely decorative. They are an acknowledgement of the scale of the environment and a plea for passage through a territory that belongs to forces far older than humanity. The wrathful deities are the spiritual manifestation of this aggression. They are the energy of the mountain contained within the human imagination, serving as a bridge between the physical danger of the heights and the internal need for security. To understand the religion of the Himalayas is to understand that it was built as a mirror to the mountains themselves, a fierce, protective system designed to endure where nothing else could. The intricate murals and silk thankas found in these hidden sanctuaries are more than just art. They are a visual map of the internal war required to exist in the void. Every color, every weapon held by a deity, and every posture is a specific instruction on how to harness the mind against the chaos of the world. In the silence of the high plateau, where isolation can lead to a crushing sense of insignificance, these images provide a sense of agency. Yet they teach that the internal struggles, the fear, the hunger, and the cold, can be mastered and turned into a source of power. This is the kind of depth Atlas regions exist to protect. Subscribe now to ensure these untold human stories are never silenced by the passage of time. The monks who spend decades studying these maps are the elite navigators of a spiritual geography that most of the world will never encounter. They are the custodians of a wisdom that recognizes that survival is not just a physical act, but a mental one. As we look upon these wrathful guardians, we realize that they are the living memory of a civilization that refused to be erased by the frost. The monasteries act as cultural vaults, holding the secrets of how to remain human when the environment demands that you become something else. The priests and practitioners here are not retreating from the world. They are standing at the very edge of it, holding the line between existence and the void. Their faith is a form of spiritual engineering, a way of anchoring the soul to the rock so that it is not swept away by the gales of history. But even the most powerful protectors cannot always hold back the tide of the modern world. The spiritual armor of the peaks is now facing a challenge that cannot be met with rituals or icons alone. As the borders of empires have hardened and the ancient trade routes have withered, the people of the high valleys are finding that the greatest threat to their survival is not the mountain, but the silence that follows a world that has moved on. The end of the salt route did not arrive with a scream, but with the quiet introduction of a cheaper alternative. In the mid-20th century, the arrival of iodized sea salt from the coast of India acted as a slow-acting poison to the economy of the high plateau. Suddenly, the white gold that had sustained the merchant warriors for 1,000 years was no longer a necessity. It was a relic. The calibrated survival mechanism that had linked the North and the South for generations was severed by the efficiency of modern transport and the low cost of industrial production. But the collapse was finalized by the drawing of hard lines across the peaks. As the borders between nations slammed shut, the fluid movement of the caravans became a criminal act. Families that had traded with one another for 40 generations were separated by barbed wire and geopolitical ambition. The salt partners in the south no longer waited with grain, and the nomadic herders in the north were left with mountains of mineral that the world no longer wanted. This was the death of a 1,000-year-old pulse, leaving the civilizations of the interior to wither in the high-altitude sun. In the high valleys of Upper Dalpo, the result of this economic erasure is visible in the emergence of ghost towns. These are settlements where the stone houses still stand, their thick walls intact, but their hearts have been cold for decades. To walk through these empty streets is to feel the weight of a sudden departure. In many homes, the everyday tools of the salt trade, the heavy pack saddles and the woven goat hair bags, lie abandoned in the corners, covered in the dust of a world that moved on without them. The migration was not a choice. It was a forced retreat. Without the salt trade, there was no way to bring grain to the high plateaus. And without grain, the biological cage of the mountains became a tomb. The youth were the first to leave, descending into the urban centers of the lowlands in search of a future that the peaks could no longer provide. What remains are the elders, the last witnesses to a time when these valleys were the bustling arteries of a mountain empire, now presiding over a silence that is as heavy as the rock itself. Perhaps the most profound tragedy of this collapse is found within the abandoned monasteries that dot these high ridges. In the shadows of the assembly halls lie vast libraries of wooden block prints, their pages containing the distilled knowledge of a millennium. These texts hold the medical secrets of high-altitude plants, with the complex lineage of local histories and the spiritual maps of the interior. But they are becoming unreadable. As the population thins and the schools close, the language itself is beginning to fray. There are few left who possess the deep literacy required to unlock the wisdom within these wooden blocks. This is the tragedy of a civilization being rendered obsolete by a border. A body of knowledge that was refined over 1,000 years to ensure human survival in the most extreme environment on Earth is now being surrendered to the mice in the dry rot. The silence in these libraries is not peaceful. It is the sound of an entire cultural identity evaporating, leaving the world poorer for a loss it hasn't even noticed. The consequences of this obsolescence are etched into the faces of the remaining population. And the elders who stay behind are the custodians of a world that has no market value in the modern era. They possess the skills to navigate a glacier or predict a storm by the smell of the air, but these abilities are useless in the concrete valleys of the South. There is a deep, dignified grief in their isolation. They are guarding the remnants of a life that was once defined by its essential role in the survival of millions, now reduced to a footnote in the history of a nation-state. This is the human cost of a world that prioritizes the efficiency of the coast over the resilience of the heights. The loss of the salt route was not just the end of a business, it was the erasure of a human bridge. But as we move from the abandoned villages of the interior toward the jagged lines of the frontier, we find that the silence of these valleys is being replaced by a different, more chilling sound. The mountains that once protected these cultures have become the site of a new frozen conflict. Where the ancient trade routes once offered a path for human connection, the geography now bears a jagged, militarized scar. We are moving into the Siachen Glacier, a place that defies the very notion of a habitable world. It is a 60-kilometer tongue of ice that sits at the center of a geopolitical knot, where the ambitions of nuclear powers collide in a landscape that rejects human life. In this high-altitude theater, the mountains are no longer sanctuaries or cathedrals. They are tactical coordinates. The geography has been weaponized. This is a region scrubbed from the standard maps of the world, a territory defined not by its people, but by the lines of control that cut through the frost. At 6,000 meters, the environment is so aggressive that it has become the primary combatant. Here, the struggle is not for the resources of the land, because the land offers nothing. The struggle is for the high ground itself, a pursuit of strategic dominance in a place where the oxygen is too thin to sustain a long-term presence. This is the ultimate expression of the unseen Himalayas, a world where the physical reality of the ice has been subordinated to the abstract demands of the nation-state. To exist on the Siachen is to enter a state of clinical decay. At these elevations, the human body is unable to recover or heal. A simple scratch can become a terminal infection, and the lack of air means that the brain and lungs are under a constant, crushing assault. The soldiers stationed here do not live. They endure a slow, systematic breakdown of their biological systems. This is a world where the primary causes of death are not bullets or artillery, but the environment itself: frostbite, high-altitude pulmonary edema, and the sudden, catastrophic violence of an avalanche. There is a dark irony in the fact that nations spend billions of dollars every year to maintain a presence in a landscape that actively seeks to dismantle the human form. It is a life lived in a state of sensory deprivation, where the only sounds are the roar of the wind and the occasional, terrifying crack of the glacier moving beneath your feet. The human story here is one of extreme, almost incomprehensible endurance. Whereas men from the warm plains of the South are forced to adapt to a reality that is fundamentally alien to their biology. The glacier is more than just a battlefield. It is a cold, indifferent archive that occasionally surrenders the remnants of the past. As the ice moves and shifts, it gives up the frozen remains of patrols that were lost decades ago, preserved in the exact state they were in when the mountain claimed them. To find these remains is to look into the face of a conflict that has outlasted the lives of those sent to fight it. These bodies are silent witnesses to the cost of maintaining a line on a map that the geography refuses to recognize. The ice does not care about national identity or strategic weight. It only understands the law of gravity and the slow, grinding power of the freeze. There is a profound sense of grief in these discoveries, a realization that the human cost of holding this ground is measured in lives that were cut short in a place where they were never meant to be. The mountains have become a graveyard of modern ambition, a place where the ice is the only permanent victor, holding on to the secrets of the dead until it decides to let them go. This militarized extremity represents the final loss of the fluid, borderless world that once defined the Himalayas. The presence of high-tech monitoring stations and long-range artillery in these high valleys has replaced the slow, rhythmic movement of the salt caravans. The silence of the peaks is now an enforced silence, a byproduct of a century-long struggle for the high ground. We see the futility of this pursuit when we realize that the very ground being fought over is itself in a state of flux. The mountains do not belong to the empires that claim them. They belong to a natural cycle that is far older and more powerful than any political ideology. But the tragedy of the Siachen is not just found in the soldiers who die there. It is found in the way this conflict has severed the ancient cultural ties that once held the peaks together. As we look further east, we find that these hard borders have done more than just stop the trade of salt. They have split the very bloodlines of the people who called these mountains home. The drawing of a border in the high Himalayas is never just a matter of ink on a map. It is a physical rupture in the shared nervous system of the mountains. For the Monpai and Mishmai people of the Eastern Range, the arrival of the modern nation-state was a sudden, catastrophic event that defied 1,000 years of communal logic. For generations, their families had moved with the seasons, following trade routes that ignored the abstract concepts of India or Tibet. Their loyalty was to the valley, the pass, and the lineage. But in the mid-20th century, the landscape was forcibly partitioned. Almost overnight, families that had lived within a day's walk of one another found themselves on opposite sides of a militarized divide. A brother in a northern grazing pasture was suddenly a citizen of a different empire than his sister in the southern village. There was no transition, no period of adjustment. There was only the sudden presence of fences and the cold reality of the rifle. This was a partition of the blood, a severing of the cultural and emotional ties that had allowed these tribes to thrive in the isolation of the heights. To maintain this separation, the authorities established the inner line, a bureaucratic and physical barrier that transformed ancient homelands into restricted districts. These are the forbidden zones, areas where the geography has been scrubbed from the public consciousness to serve the needs of national security. For the people living within these sectors, the environment has become a labyrinth of permits and checkpoints. The very act of visiting a neighboring valley, once a routine part of a social or economic cycle, now requires the approval of a distant capital. This administrative erasure has forced the cultural evolution of these regions into a vacuum. The ancient fluid movement that allowed for the exchange of ideas, marriages, and traditions has been replaced by a static, enforced isolation. The inner line does not just keep outsiders out, it keeps the mountain people trapped within a fragmented version of their own history. It is a system designed to prioritize the sanctity of the border over the survival of the culture, turning the ancestral lands of the Monpa into a strategic buffer where the human story is a secondary concern. The most quiet and devastating consequence of this bifurcation is the slow death of the valley dialects. Language in the Himalayas is a living thing, shaped by the movement of people and the exchange of goods along the trade routes. When those routes were replaced by sniper nests and radar installations, the circulation of the language stopped. Today, when the dialects of the eastern forbidden zones are becoming linguistic islands, drifting further away from their roots with every passing year. In villages that once looked to the great monasteries of the north for spiritual and educational guidance, the youth are now being assimilated into the dominant languages of the plains. The specific terminology of the high-altitude environment, the words for the different textures of snow, the temperaments of the winds, and the medicinal properties of rare plants is being forgotten. This is the enforced silence of the high valleys. When a dialect dies, it is not just a loss of words. It is the loss of a specific way of seeing the world. 1,000 years of ecological and spiritual observation is being silenced by the static of the border. The people of these bifurcated bloodlines now exist in a state of suspended identity. They are custodians of a history that the rest of the world only views through the lens of a territorial dispute. In places like the Tawang Monastery, the second largest in the world, the monks live as the guardians of a cultural heritage that has been severed from its source. They pray for a world that no longer exists, a world where the mountains were bridges rather than barriers. There is a profound sense of mourning in these restricted zones, a realization that the very geography that once protected their way of life is now the reason for its destruction. The tragedy of the unseen Himalayas is that the most remote corners of the earth have been colonized by the gravity of the nation-state, leaving the indigenous inhabitants to navigate a reality where they are strangers in their own land. But even as these human borders harden, a much larger and more indifferent force is beginning to move through the range. A change is coming to the peaks that no army can stop and no border can contain, threatening the very physical foundation of the world we have been shown. The final frontier of the unseen Himalayas is no longer defined by the movements of men or the lines of a map, but by the retreat of the very ice that made life possible. A phenomenon known as elevation-dependent warming is now transforming the high plateau at twice the global average rate. This is not a distant environmental statistic. It is a fundamental shift in the physical reality of the range. For thousands of years, when the glaciers acted as the water towers of Asia, holding the lifeblood of the continent in a state of frozen stability, they were reliable storage tanks that released their bounty in a predictable cycle, allowing civilizations to bloom in the rain shadow. But that stability has been replaced by a radical volatility. The mountains are warming from the top down, and as the permafrost thaws, the very foundation of the high-altitude world is becoming unstable. The ice is no longer a static provider. It has become a force of unpredictable motion. For the people living in the shadow of the peaks, the sound of the mountain is changing. The deep, heavy silence of the frost is being replaced by the sound of water running where it was never meant to flow, signaling the beginning of an era where the environment is no longer a partner, but a threat to everything that has been built. As the glaciers melt with an intensity never before witnessed, they leave behind massive, unstable bodies of water trapped by loose rock and debris. These are glacial lakes, held in place by natural dams called moraines. To the casual observer, they appear as beautiful, turquoise jewels in the high valleys. But to those who understand the physics of the heights, they are ticking clocks. When a moraine fails, triggered by an earthquake, a rockfall, or simply the internal pressure of the rising water, it creates a glacial lake outburst flood. This is a catastrophic release of millions of cubic meters of water, ice, and boulders in a single high-velocity wave. These events are not floods in the traditional sense. They are debris flows with the power to grind entire forests into pulp and erase stone villages in seconds. The breach of a moraine is the ultimate betrayal of the landscape. The water that was once the source of life for the valley becomes the instrument of its destruction, washing away the agricultural terraces and the ancient shrines that have stood for centuries. The people of the peaks now live in a state of constant vigilance, watching the heights not for the arrival of the seasons, but for the first sign of a breach. The events of 2025 and early 2026 have served as a brutal harbinger of this new reality. Across Nepal and the Sikkim region, the high valleys were struck by a series of outburst floods that exceeded all historical precedents. These were not isolated incidents. They were a systemic failure of the high-altitude plumbing. Villages that had survived for 1,000 years were wiped from the map in a matter of hours. The human story of these disasters is found in the debris, the splintered remains of prayer wheels and the mud-caked ruins of family homes. For the survivors, the trauma is not just the loss of property, but the loss of their sense of security. The mountains, which were once the dwelling places of gods and protectors, have become volatile and unrecognizable. The ancient knowledge that allowed these people to live in equilibrium with the peaks is being rendered useless by a change that is moving faster than their ability to adapt. The 2026 disasters have forced a realization that the water towers are no longer reliable. They are leaking, and in their failure, they are taking with them the physical remains of a civilization that was carved out of the frost. This environmental shift is forcing a total civilizational collapse that no amount of engineering can prevent. The glaciers are the thermal and hydrological heart of the Himalayas, and as they fail, the cultural logic of the entire region dissolves. We are seeing the end of a specific human experiment, the ability of a society to exist in total harmony with the most extreme environment on the planet. When the ice disappears, the very reason for the existence of places like Mustang and Dolpo evaporates. The vertical economy, the salt routes, and the fortified monasteries were all built on the assumption that the mountain was a permanent, unchanging entity. But the peaks are revealing themselves to be fragile. When the volatile reservoir of the high plateau is a threat that the wrathful protectors cannot hold back. For the people of the unseen Himalayas, the future is no longer a continuation of the past, but a descent into an uncertain landscape of ruins and high-tech monitoring stations. But even as the water rises, a different kind of retreat is taking place. A slow, silent migration of the soul that is leaving the high valleys empty of everything but their memories. The internal rhythm of the high mountains was once dictated by the predictable arrival of the snow and the steady flow of the springs. For the people of the peaks, the calendar was not a series of numbers, but a spiritual and ecological cycle that governed when to plant, when to move the herds, and when to offer prayers to the mountain spirits. And this traditional cycle is now suffering from a process of cultural browning, where the green of the summer pastures and the white of the winter snow are being replaced by a dusty, arid brown. The springs that have fed these communities for 1,000 years are vanishing. As the permafrost recedes and the glaciers shrink, the subterranean arteries of the mountain are drying up. This is a quiet, invisible disaster. It does not have the sudden violence of a flood, but its effect is more permanent. Without water, the rituals lose their meaning. The festival of the first planting becomes a hollow gesture when the earth is too dry to receive the seed. The breakdown of the calendar is the first sign of a society losing its tether to the land. When a signal that the ancient contract between the human and the mountain has been broken by forces far beyond the reach of local prayer. There is no place where this tragedy is more evident than in the village of Day and Mustang. For centuries, this community existed as a sustainable pocket of life in a high-altitude desert, relying on a single glacial stream to irrigate its barley fields. But as the ice above disappeared, the stream became a trickle and then a memory. D is now a case study in a new kind of human displacement, the climate refugee of the peaks. The community was forced to make a choice that no generation before them had ever contemplated: to abandon their ancestral soil entirely. Moving an entire village is not just a logistical effort, it is a spiritual amputation. When to leave Day is to leave behind the stones where the ancestors are buried, the walls that hold the family stories, and the specific geography that defined who they were. The people have been forced to relocate to the banks of the Kali Gandaki, to a place where they have water but no history. This is the first wave of a massive silent exodus that is hollowing out the high valleys, turning living cultures into museum pieces. The soil they left behind is now a barren wasteland, a testament to the speed at which 1,000 years of residency can be erased by the absence of a single spring. In the wake of this exodus, a few remain. These are the last custodians of the dust, the elders who refuse to leave the villages of their birth, even as the water vanishes and the houses around them crumble. They stay behind as the final witnesses to a world that is literally evaporating. To talk to these men and women is to hear a narrative of profound loss. They remember when the snow was deep enough to cover the roofs, and when the streams were loud enough to be heard from inside the houses. Now they live in a landscape of terrifying stillness. Their daily lives are a struggle for every drop of moisture, a desperate effort to maintain the dignity of their presence in a place that no longer wants them. They are the keepers of the oral histories, the specific knowledge of the land, and the ancient prayers that were meant to ensure the survival of the tribe. But as they age, they realize that there is no one to whom they can pass this inheritance. Their children have descended into the cities of the South, trading the life of the high plateau for the anonymity of the urban poor. The evaporation of this world is a loss that goes beyond the human inhabitants of the valleys. When a village like D is abandoned, a specific way of being human disappears from the earth. The high-altitude knowledge, the ability to grow grain at 4,000 meters, the mastery of communal irrigation, and the spiritual resilience required to face the void, is a refined heritage that cannot be recreated elsewhere. We are witnessing the final chapter of a civilization that solved the riddle of survival in the most difficult terrain on the planet, only to be defeated by a shift in the global climate that they did nothing to cause. The elders in the dust are the last link to a chain of continuity that stretches back to the first salt traders and the first cave dwellers. As they fade away, the high valleys are becoming silent, inhabited only by the wind and the ghosts of a 1,000-year-old dream. But even in this state of decline, the Himalayas have one final secret to reveal, a discovery that challenges everything we thought we knew about the origins of life in these heights. We have reached a moment of profound paradigm shift in our understanding of the high plateau. For the duration of this journey, we have observed the mountains as a fortress, a cathedral, and a marketplace. But the ultimate realization is far more sobering. We are not merely losing ice, and we are not merely witnessing the retreat of glaciers. We are losing the most successful human experiment in equilibrium ever conducted. For thousands of years, the societies of the interior did not just survive, they achieved a state of calibrated balance with an environment that offered zero margin for error. They turn the verticality of the rock into a defense, the salinity of the earth into a currency, and the violence of the wind into a structural logic for their cities. This equilibrium was not a static state, but a dynamic daily negotiation between human ingenuity and the crushing weight of the heights. As the physical foundation of this world thaws and the water towers leak, that balance is being permanently disrupted. The tragedy is not simply environmental. It is the erasure of a specific way of being that proved humanity could flourish in the void. When the cultural logic that built the sky caves and the salt routes is gone, what remains of the human story in these heights? We are left with a landscape of unresolved wonder, where the stone structures outlast the purpose for which they were built. The grottos suspended in the limestone cliffs and the walled silence of cities like Lomantang become empty vessels, detached from the living heartbeat of the people who understood their secrets. Without the movement of the caravans and the seasonal rituals of the high pastures, these monuments are reduced to silent artifacts. The cultural logic was the glue that held the geography together, a sophisticated software of survival that allowed a person to navigate a blizzard or trade across a glacier with total confidence. As this logic evaporates, the mountains return to a state of raw, an unmediated nature, a territory that is once again alien and hostile to our species. The loss of this intellectual and spiritual heritage means that we are becoming strangers to the high-altitude world, losing the key to a door that took 3 millennia to unlock. This was always a liminal human experiment, a life lived on the very threshold of the possible. The people of the unseen Himalayas existed in the thin space between the earth and the firmament, proving that culture is not a product of ease, but a product of resistance. Their architecture, their wrathful protectors, and their bifurcated bloodlines all point to a singular truth, that the human spirit is most resilient when it is most challenged. They did not seek to conquer the mountain, but to inhabit its marrow. They accepted the limitations of the rock and the ice, and in doing so they found a freedom that the residents of the lowlands can scarcely imagine. But as the modern world encroaches with its hard borders and its industrial efficiency, that liminal space is being closed. The experiment is being terminated, not by a failure of the people, but by a change in the global climate that has rendered their ancient contracts void. We are watching the closing of a window into the potential of our species to adapt to the most extreme conditions of the planet. The Himalayas do not just touch the sky, they define the limit of the human spirit. And as the ice retreats, we are not just witnessing a change in climate. We are watching the final breath of a civilization that learned how to thrive where the world said life was impossible. This is the final thesis of our journey. The story of the unseen Himalayas is the story of a humanity that refused to be defined by its limitations, carving a home out of the vertical in the cold. As the last custodians of the dust remain in their drying villages, and the libraries of wooden blocks fall into silence, we are called to bear witness to the dignity of their endurance. The legacy of the sky caves and the merchant warriors will remain etched into the rock, a testament to a time when the mountain and the human were one. Though the water may rise and the borders may harden, the memory of this vertical empire serves as a reminder that even in the most inhospitable corners of the earth, the light of human culture once burned with a fierce and unwavering brilliance.